Ever wondered who you'd have a better chance at beating in a fight, Venom or Carnage?
Eyes, lungs, pancreas.
Of course you haven't. That's insane. You'd be squashed like a soda can. But it is an interesting thought. Given their fairly similar extraterrestrial backgrounds, superhuman abilities, and penchant for causing mayhem, which of them would come out on top if they had a throwdown?
This is a sight to warm a man's heart.
Welcome to the Binger, guys. And in today's video, we're going to be pitting Venom against Carnage, and ranking their powers and abilities to see who reigns supreme as the superior Klyntar baddie. We're going to assume you're fairly familiar with these two symbiotes and the web-shooting, quick-healing powers they possess, so we'll get straight to looking at how their powers differ. But bear in mind, we will be considering how their hosts help or hinder said powers, and as a result, we'll be focusing on each symbiote's most popular host from the comics, being Eddie Brock for Venom or Cletus Cassidy for Carnage. So let's open the door to chaos, shall we?
Do not open that door.
Okay, so let's get the whole what do you bench bro question out of the way first, shall we? As it comes down to sheer physical strength, be it in a brawl or an arm wrestle, who would win? Well, the simple answer is that Carnage is physically stronger. Although their physical strength has fluctuated quite a bit in the comics, Venom can typically be seen to be able to lift around 25-30 tons, whereas Carnage's capabilities hover around 80-90 ton mark. Quite a big difference. Physical strength is one of the main reasons we've seen Spider-Man and Venom team up to take down Carnage. Although even though their strength combined, Venom and Spidey could only collectively manage to about 40-50 tons. Again, these figures have fluctuated quite a bit, but the bottom line here is Carnage physically has the upper hand.
Guess that answers that question!
So this next one's kind of like a strength in the form of a lost weakness. Allow us to explain. So, it's well known that symbiotes are vulnerable to fire and sonic sound waves. As a blanket rule, either of these can help separate a symbiote from a host, or, if intense enough, defeat the symbiote altogether. Although Carnage initially suffered from both of these weaknesses, Cassidy made a deal with the older god Thawne and traded his weakness for sonic sound waves for something else. That something else is a weakness to thonic magic. Okay, so when he wants to be, the god of chaos Thawne can basically be the worst person you want to take off. Ever. So being vulnerable to his magic kinda sucks. But it's not very often that we see Thawne here on Earth. So, all things concerned, trading a weakness of sonic attacks for a greater vulnerability to magic ain't a bad deal at all. Sure, Venom's ability to deal with magic attacks is pretty advanced, but it's quite unlikely that magic's gonna come into play in everyday fisticuffs. Spider-Man and Venom are more likely to try and use a sonic attack instead, so that's another plus for Carnage. Come on, Eddie, get your head in the game. 2 in and you're already trailing? A big part of what makes the symbiote so difficult to defeat is the strength of the character underneath the gooey exterior. Eddie Brock and Cletus Cassidy, for example, are two very strong personalities, but they're also very different. Sure, both have been known to go completely off the rails from time to time, but the big difference is that Cassidy was clinically diagnosed as a psychopath, whereas Brock has been known to put certain differences aside, work with Spider-Man and become an anti-hero from time to time. Cassidy really doesn't have any redeeming qualities or nice bones in his body. Anyways, our point here is about control and ultimately being in the driver's seat when it comes to mastering your abilities. As can be seen in the comics and in the 2018 movie Venom, the relationship between Brock and the Venom symbiote is a complicated one, but one that does exist nevertheless.
Yes, you are. Why would you do that?
They may bicker every now and then, but ultimately, their back-and-forth communication is what makes them so intelligent in battle. They can share notes on enemies, ways of getting out of tight spots. It's a match made in hellish heaven. Carnage, however, is just Carnage. Sure, Cletus Cassidy may be the host under the skin, but the sheer anger and violence of Cassidy is channeled through the Carnage symbiote and basically makes it erratic and uncontrollable. Being so unhinged also makes you more susceptible to making bad decisions and being manipulated. Being stronger is all well and good, but when your opponent can be more tactical, it doesn't really count for much. And that's why having 2 heads, metaphorically speaking, is better than 1.
You gonna eat anybody else?
Most likely.
As symbiotes form a bond with their hosts, they can make them say and do whatever they want, mostly. But when it comes to Carnage, it can go a step further. In the comics, Carnage can be seen using his tendrils to plant thoughts in Matthew Kurt's head, a psychiatric specialist who looks to cure him. As a result, Kurtz loses his mind. But it's not just this horrifying method in which Carnage can take over someone's mind. Carnage can be seen taking over an entire town and a bunch of Marvel heroes like Wolverine and The Thing in Carnage USA Volume 1, which is all kinds of cool. And that's where this power really comes into its own. Aside from making people crazy, being able to plant thoughts in people's minds, Carnage could brainwash people into doing whatever he wants. Imagine an army of people just as unhinged as Carnage, willing to act on his every word, no matter how terrible the order may be. And speaking of an army, thanks to certain experiments by Michael Hall of Hall Industries in the Marvel Comics, Carnage became able to perform symbiotic expansions. What is that, you may ask? Well, it means that Carnage can duplicate himself. As in there could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of him to fight at once? Or maybe even more. And there aren't just empty vessels that merely look like Carnage. Oh no. These duplicates can be individually controlled by Carnage, meaning there could be literally several of the red meanies to fight at one time.
There's gonna be carnage.
So this one might sound a bit basic because all symbiotes offer the same sort of rapid healing power. That's true, but Carnage ramps things up significantly so. Venom can heal the most brutal of stab wounds, diseases, and even cancer.
I aim to please.
Carnage, on the other hand, can regrow limbs and even his entire body in a matter of seconds. We're talking about being able to shrug off being cut in half, having limbs torn off, and even, and this is a big one folks, having his head cut off. Such a rapid healing ability is far beyond anything Venom can do. It makes the likes of Deadpool and Wolverine look like wimps.
All the dinosaurs feared the T-Rex.
A symbiote's flailing arms are almost like its calling card. A brainwashing Play-Doh monster would be nothing without his tentacles and tendrils.
I'm so sorry about your friends.
How do Venom and Carnage measure up in this department? Well, pretty much every symbiote we've seen on the screen or in the comics can sprout giant, stretching arms and use them to grip, grab, slash, or prod anything or anyone. We've also seen these tentacle things shapeshift into a wide variety of dangerous weapons. In Venom's case, these weapons are usually limited to swinging instruments. But when it comes to Carnage, it's a little bit different, as you might expect. Although Carnage also morphs his appendages into devastating handheld weapons, his ace in the hole is producing projectiles. Just like the Riot symbiote, Carnage is capable of firing the hazardous and dangerous shapes it produces from his body, given that these don't tend to stick around for long, just long enough to do some damage. But the fact that Carnage can fire things means it can actually do damage from further away, as if it wasn't already tough enough.
What are our chances?
Pretty much 0.
As we've already mentioned, what host a symbiote picks can play a big part in how the symbiote will act, but the way in which a symbiote bonds with its host also makes a big difference. Most symbiotes are kind of like a sentient goo that can jump from host to host like Venom. Carnage, on the other hand, is Venom's offspring, and its very first host was Cassidy. But it didn't merely cling to him when it bonded. It got into a cut in his body and bonded with him on a cellular level.
What are you waiting for? I am yours, man.
What does that mean exactly? Well, it's a bit like spilling red wine on a white rug. It's very, very, very difficult to get it off. So the Carnage symbiote is in his bloodstream. It's part of him. Cassidy even refers to Carnage as I, not we or it. Unlike most other symbiotes, you can't plan to defeat Carnage by merely separating it from its host. That can be a massive advantage for Carnage in battle. However, allow us to hit you with a curveball. Venom can be drawn out of its host fairly easily given the right ingredients. But it has the freedom to move around and it doesn't rely solely on one host. Also, it can mimic the abilities of others it bonds with. Venom could easily hop about, collect abilities, and then take over a new host. Although this can be done merely through touch. Carnage is devastating when bonded with Cassidy, but its reliance on one host, or at least its reliance on the host that maximizes its potential, is quite a big weakness. So we're gonna have to give this round to the carefree, body-jumping Venom.
Yeah, look at you now, huh? Now you're dying too.
It's a pretty well-known fact that Spider-Man's Spidey sense can't detect symbiotes, but it's likewise for symbiotes when fighting one another. They have to rely on quick reflexes and wits to one-up each other. Carnage has a slight edge, however. While Venom is super agile, Carnage has literal eyes in the back of his head, and everywhere else in fact. Carnage has a full-body receptory system, which basically means that every cell in its body has sensory input. So, every bit of its body can act as an eye to spot when Spidey or Venom is attacking it, or even act as a mouth, nose, ear, you get the idea.
Strawberries.
So, it's not advised that you try to sneak up on Carnage. It can smell, see, hear, and even taste you coming. Wow, that's terrifying. So, there you have it. It's pretty clear on paper that Carnage would wipe the floor with Venom when it comes to powers and abilities. But don't underestimate the power of a sound mind, folks. It trumps brute force more often than not. And teamwork? That's important too, right, Spidey?
Webbed wonders. Spider-Man and his amazing goo-covered frenemy? Ow!
But who do you think would win head-to-head? Were there any key powers and abilities we missed out? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below, and make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Binger YouTube channel for more awesome videos like this one. See you next time!